Hey everybody, welcome to Bitcoin Live, the Hangout on Saturday. We do these things once a month, and as we go, we get better at them. This is like, the complete crew or the family of Bitcoin Live, so it's really fun. Some of the faces you already know from our platform, of course. Some you might not know. Let's just do a quick round for everybody. Peace, love, music. I think they know you by now. You do the organized. Can you do a small introduction?
Yeah, hi. Peace, love, music. I'm with the Organized Project, and we are actually working a lot with you guys. You guys have graciously given us access to use the platform off hours when you're not running shows. So we've taken that opportunity to spotlight some of the stuff going on in the Stacks ecosystem and the broader Bitcoin space. And happy to be here, and I with some tremendous guys. I know all of these guys, good friends of mine, and I love what you guys are doing with Bitcoin Live. Awesome stuff.
Thanks, man. And Jack?
Hey, it's Jack Binswitch. I've got a twice a month podcast called Ahead of the Curve. We just kind of talk about all things Bitcoin L2s, crypto, just same thing. Just it's an exciting space to be in and a fun time to be here. So thanks as always for working so hard to make such cool content.
Thanks, Jack. And Haddy, you're a little bit like me, like you're in the background a lot, doing a lot of stuff. So yeah, people might not be familiar with you, at least outside of the Stacks scene. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, I'm Haddy. So Peace Love graciously allowed me to co-host the organizer with them. So I'm from Stacks community as well. I'm involved there. So I was in the D grants, which is where Peace Love came out of so I've been in there for a little while. I also am the community manager for Zero Authority now as well. So supporting them with their project, which is bringing reputation on chain. So yeah, love what you guys do. Really love it that you give us a platform to talk from twice. We've had, what was it, twice a week? Twice last week was it Peace Love? So thank you, Nick.
Yeah, we had 2 podcasts last week with the special BNS special panel.
Yeah, that one was really cool.
That was awesome.
It would not be possible without you guys. So thank you.
Well, it's my pleasure.
And Haddy put that all together, by the way. He got all of those guys rounded up, and that never would have happened without him. So don't let him sell himself short. He's not just tagging along. He's lifting.
That's the hardest part.
Yeah.
That is always the hardest part. So kudos.
Oh, there's a lot of OGs, and there's another one who just dropped out as I was.
We lost him. Oh, did he come back? I think I heard him.
I think so.
Yeah,
there he is. Okay, that's Matty. Hi, Matty. You make these awesome intros and outros that we have. It wouldn't be possible without you, and you do a lot of other cool stuff. Can you give a small introduction of yourself? If you can hear us.
Oh, wait. Hello. I think I can hear you. I had my signal, I think, interrupted. What's going on? So I don't know what the question was, but I'm just happy to be here. I love watching the content everybody makes. It's fun. Now I'm Lexington again. What the heck is going on here? I might have to maybe it's because I'm under these I don't know. I'm under some maybe it could be the power lines. I might have to move somewhere else. Hold on. I'm sorry. Anyways, carry on.
No problem. Yeah, and I think also Kitsune is trying to get in. Probably Douglas. I saw a message of him. Gerald might drop in. Sid. So we'll just see how it goes. I had the title like Bitcoin What's Up because Bitcoin is sort of jumping around a lot. Let's start there. How do you guys see what's happening with Bitcoin price-wise, and maybe also just fundamentals, and what's your take on what's happening?
I heard about Bitcoin and price and fundamentals. I heard that part. I'll go first if you don't mind, since I got good connection. I'm hearing a lot of bearish sentiment out there. I don't know why people are so bearish. I've seen articles from Billy Bambro over at Forbes saying 40. I'm hearing other people in spaces calling for 38, and one guy
Wow.
So crazy. One guy saying he's got a price target for next December of 2025 of 15K, and everybody was like, "Dude, what are you on?" So I think when the big thing to look at is fundamentally we just had a new all-time high in hash, right? So people are very bearish. The sentiment I think there's a lot of FUD. I think maybe we could retest somewhere into the 40s, but I think that's probably the worst that it goes. I don't think I think the bearish sentiment is more FUD, trying to get people to cop their coins. So stay safe, stack sats, and hodl. With the hash is always a good fundamental piece of information to look at. So that's my 2 sats.
Yeah. Was it Galloway who said like next year? What was it? 15K? Crazy. So
Yeah,
Well,
keep
even
waiting for it.
if it gets down to 38K, and not financial advice, I'm not a financial advisor, but if it gets down to 38K, you should grab up as much Bitcoin as you can, because that's below the cost of below the electrical cost. That's a gift if it gets down that low, which I don't think it's going to be honest.
In my world, one of the things we like to say is zoom out, right?
Mm-hmm.
So here's the reality of it. Most people still don't know anything about Bitcoin. They're not paying attention at all. Now, what you do have is bankers who are very, very good at winning. They've been winning for a very long time, right? We're talking centuries here if you really want to zoom out. Who are the most active market participants in Bitcoin right now? Retail, at least I can speak for the US, is struggling. Most people can't even save. People are living on credit, okay? Lots of people are living on credit. Those of us who stack sats, like Matty said, have been living off of Bitcoin if we need to, which is painful in and of itself, which is why I'm such a big proponent of DeFi. But if you actually look at what's going on, the bankers want cheap Bitcoin, right? So they're very, very good at suppressing or controlling or manipulating. I'm not going to try to be nice or politically correct when I say that. They're very good at winning this game. So you're not going to see any big giant price increases while retail's broke. Okay, it's not going to happen. And then when you go on like Twitter, the sentiment you see, if you've been here a few bull cycles in the Bitcoin or crypto world, the sentiment you see is reflective of what bottoms always look like. Everyone's like, that's what capitulation means. You see capitulation on a chart, and then you look at another screen and you see capitulation, what it actually means by people's words and how they're expressing their feelings. So wait for 38K, see what happens.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Wait, I think Gerald also wants to jump in. Yeah. And any of the others, Haddy, how do you see that? Do you have like an opinion on that, or?
I have opinions. Again, I must profess to say that I'm not an expert like the rest of everyone. But I have been through at least one bull and bear. And this is remnant of what I saw before, is where you hit an all-time high. Everyone then gets upset because loads of people ape in because they see number go up. Then they realize, and the number comes down, they realize the volatility. And then you see, like Jack said, you see all this negative press start coming out. People start playing with it. And then people just start scooping up all the paper hands. So that's all I'm seeing is just paper hands again. And to be honest, my target is 42. Like that's where I think it's going to go. That's the low point I think we're going to hit. So that's what I've maintained the whole way, is 42 is kind of where it's going to bottom out. But I know nothing. I must profess. I know nothing, and it's not financial advice.
No, nothing like this is financial advice. It's very, very important to say. But your 42K target is like in September then, I guess?
Well, I think that's the bottom of what we're looking at before it starts going up again. So I think the bottom will be 42. We're going to have a little bit of a rocky road, but I don't know if we'll see it this year. I'm in Europe, so the same as you. And the markets are very weird here at the moment. So
definitely.
Yeah. So Europe, a lot of more volatility to come.
Actually, if Kitsune
the money's only just starting to dry up.
Yeah, well, yeah, there's a lot of
until they print more, Haddy. Until they print more. It's only drying up until they print more.
Right.
Yeah, but the money doesn't hit retail though. That's the problem. The money won't hit retail. So you're still there's a line between, and even if it's interest rates that are going to help the people, printing money does nothing. That's coming down interest rates, which they're predicting next year. A friend of mine who works in a very large bank is predicting next year.
No, it won't help. It won't help retail.
You'll start seeing.
It'll drive up the cost of assets. So if you own
the money will, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So my theory has always been that they want to squeeze out retail as far as possible, and then also not just out of crypto, but out of everything, right? And get them on the CBDC. Yeah.
You'll own nothing and like it. That's the. They weren't joking when they said that. You'll own nothing.
No, and you'll be happy. Not that you'll like it. You'll be happy.
Yeah, but that's the only thing that I don't really understand why we should be happy about it. Like where does the happy face come in?
Well,
right.
I guess if you want to look at it from I have a capacity to step out and objectively look at things that I strongly disagree with. And maybe they're trying to imply that you'll be happy because you don't have any responsibilities or care because you don't own anything. You don't have to worry about it. It's being taken care of for you. I think that's the implication as to why you might be happy about it.
That's a fair assessment.
That's a positive spin, man. That's a real positive spin.
That's what I do. That's what I do, man. That's what I do. And I'm not saying. So here's the thing, right? Let's say you were in a position to control the world's financial markets. Would you? Of course you would. You kind of almost would have an obligation to. So you're not necessarily motivated to do it in a nefarious way. You're just doing it in the best way that you think is the best way possible. So it's not always I'm not saying it's the right way or the right thing or that I agree with what they're doing. What I'm saying is they might not actually be setting out to be doing the negative. There's unintended consequences a lot of times to a lot of these things, right? Like the goal isn't necessarily
planning doesn't work. There's too many variables. Yeah,
right. It doesn't work. You can't centrally plan stuff, and then you can't have a controlled economy with no influence on supply and demand, because then you're producing things you don't need and not supplying all the stuff you do need. It just doesn't work. That's not how economics works.
Well, they tried it in Russia.
Right.
They had like one central bank, the Rosneft. I think. Oh, by the way, 3D, welcome to the show.
3D
Gerald.
and Terry, what's up?
Gerald.
Cheers.
I love that avatar. That's so cool.
Yeah, that's
hello.
People are dropping in and out. So, Gerald, what's your take?
On Bitcoin's price movement?
Yeah. Also, let's start there. That's yeah.
I mean, the hash rate indicates, that there's still people using the network. The miners are still mining. So, I mean, literally, could it go into the 40s? Yeah. I mean, the charts say yes, 47, 45, somewhere in there. I personally think that the bottom is like 49. And we're going to see more action. If we do see any action towards 70K, we hit 71,000. There's like, I don't know how many shorts get burnt, and it's a big number. It's probably the biggest. It would be, I think, if not one of the biggest liquidations in Bitcoin history. So we do want to see 70K. If we see 70K, I think it goes higher. I think it goes to possibly 80, maybe higher. But if you look at a HODL waves chart, I haven't looked at one in a couple of months, but the purple waves are growing, right? If you go to my Medium channel, I have an article I wrote about this. And my theory from a few years ago is that we will continually see the purple HODL waves grow, larger and larger. And if you're not familiar with the HODL waves chart, it's basically a color-coded chart, and then it goes from the red spectrum to the blue spectrum, kind of like, if we're talking astronomy. But the red side is people that hold like literally for less than like, a couple of days. I think it's like 5 days or less. And then as you get towards the purple end of the spectrum, it's like 10 years. And these purple HODL waves now are very large on the chart. So there's a lot of corn that hasn't moved for a long, long time. So at some point, we are going to see this mega jump. Whether it hits 300K, 3 million, I'm not sure. But it is going to start. Literally, though, we're still going to see an implosion in the equities markets, right? I predicted this in April on our show. And, Bitcoin will bleed out when that happens, but it will recover faster than everything else because it is the most liquid market in the world. But I've been calling for this implosion for some time, and we're here, right? We're here, and everyone's on the same page now, right? You're about to see the Fed step in soon and say they're going to cut rates. And when that happens, just from them hinting at it the other day, Bitcoin went to 61,000, right? So Bitcoin only respects a few things in the universe, right? It respects block times, it respects the difficulty, and it sniffs out weak paper. So if they do cut rates, we will see Bitcoin jump like you've never seen it probably ever.
That sounds really good. I like it. Now, I know Douglas is less interested in price and that kind of stuff. How are you doing, Douglas?
I'm all right. Thank you, guys. Glad to be here. I think I haven't been catching these like a couple of times.
Your sound is a little bit low.
A little low. That's probably the new mic. Sorry. Not a whole lot I can do there. But I'm not expecting a whole lot with Bitcoin until about March, as tradition, 6 months or more after the halving, and then there's always a New Year dip because people need money for New Year's, and it's just common for it to not come back up until about March afterwards, and so that's why I'm waiting on there. And it's like, there's a lot of technicals you can throw at it, but we can also just look, like you're saying, the super long, like the guy was saying, look at the very long-term frames of everything, not just looking at the long holders, because there's going to be some in there that can never be returned. There is just some Bitcoin that's actually lost. Like we've seen from wallet keys just being improperly made to like the old-fashioned green wallets, which were completely drained and put into some wallet that we haven't seen since then. And a lot of those, it's just like automated systems or things got lost. And like, for example, Sal Roshi's still in prison. We think he might have at least half of the original Bitcoin, founding Bitcoin 1 million Satoshi, or 1 million Bitcoins. And then there was another guy, he died in 2013. His family is still fighting to get his Bitcoin USB drive that the government Australia took from him in 2013. His family's still fighting for that. And that's at least like 500,000 Bitcoin. And it's like, so we do know, like, when some of those long standings change, like he's saying, when those standings change, when that family in Australia gets their money, when some of these bigger people that's lost their funds finally figure out how to get it, you're gonna see a big jump in Bitcoin. Because if everybody remembers, the big last jump in the price movement was actually because hackers figured out how to get into that one guy's wallet after he put in the 7th time and lost all his keys, and someone was like, well, we could have done that for you without even trying. Like 20 minutes we could have been in. The Bitcoin price went up because it showed even if you had all the power, money, and resources, you still were dumb in Bitcoin.
Wow. I also want to do a shout out to Kitsune. She just dropped a message in the private chat. She is, by the way, from the Philippines. So we got Europe, we got America, and the Philippines here. I also want to mention that she's like a really big, important part of Bitcoin Live, because she does all the amazing graphics, and she sort of keeps track of things to make them run smooth. But I think her microphone is not working today. So, or wait, her microphone was working. I'm not sure if it's working or not. Anyway,
I think one thing to keep in consideration when you're talking about near-term price action for Bitcoin, and I hate to be America-centric, but this is my point of view. If you're looking at like Donald Trump winning the presidency, if he implements half of the things he's talking about doing with Bitcoin, that's a factor we've never seen before, right? So I think that a lot of models, I don't know that they can take that into account. I think that if the U.S. starts hoovering up Bitcoin, I think you see a more overt arms race to get Bitcoin from other large actors worldwide. Conversely, if that stone cold moron wins, Kamala Harris, and we're talking about unrealized tax on capital gains and all of this just complete nonsense, I think everyone's bags are in trouble, short term, midterm, hardcore. So I think that we have to keep those things in mind when we're looking. So I mean, at least for the next 60 or so days, I'm not paying much attention either way. It's really all going to come down to that. Again, short term, in my opinion.
Yeah, Kitsune is going to drop out. It's kind of late on her end. Yeah, I think you're right, Jack.
Hey, one thing
Go on.
Well, one thing I think that we haven't really brought up and that we should account is that just recently we had RIAs, registered investment advisors, like Morgan Stanley, finally get the green light to start selling Bitcoin. Wells Fargo as well. So we see a lot of these folks coming on in Q3 that are now able to grant access to their customers to Bitcoin. Now, it wouldn't surprise me if the price is being pushed down. So these now, third RIAs that are coming in are getting access to really cheap Sats as well. So it'll be interesting to see what happens here by the end of Q3, Q4, when we find out how much did Morgan Stanley actually sell? How much did they bring in? And the other thing, then, I'm just going to put it out there for what it's worth. Everybody, I'm sure, probably is aware of who Samson Mao is and his work at Jan 3 and his ties, obviously, with Adam Back over at Blockstream from back in the day. And Sam put out a very very bullish tweet just the other day. If you follow Sam, he said Godzilla on Monday, and today's Saturday. So does he know something we don't know? He does work with onboarding nation states, and this is going to be the big thing, World War Bitcoin. So if once we see, to Jack's point, the nation states coming in and America and Trump doing this stuff, Godzilla is coming. So I don't know what Sam knows, but food for thought.
Yeah, and again,
Godzilla's from Japan, guys.
But didn't that one guy just get out of jail? The Binance guy?
Yeah, CZ's out. Yeah, CZ's
he's out.
I think he's out on Saturday.
Yeah, is he finally out of the halfway house?
Yeah. I think he's actually like where he's supposed to be able to get back to work. He's probably the Godzilla they're talking about on Monday because he's going to work on
okay. Well, okay. Well, then there you go.
I'm Team Orange. I think obviously what Donald is saying makes sense. I've been saying this for some time, right? We need to have a Bitcoin mining authority. I'm running for president in 2028. Way more about this stuff than all those clowns pretend to know about this. Okay. So what's on my agenda? I'm eliminating income tax. So yeah, vote for VOD 2020.
Yeah.
Boom. Cheers.
Yeah, income tax. Yeah, we could do a whole hour on income tax.
Yeah, and unrealized income tax of unrealized gains, right? That's really crazy what she is proposing. Do you guys think that she actually can win in because you have a better idea of Kamala's chances?
I think she can take it.
She totally lost the election by saying that.
How honest do you want me to be?
100%.
I think they can make it happen if they want to make it happen.
No, but she lost the election by saying this. You don't say that to the crowds, right? You might say that behind closed doors. You might say that to your, whoever is on board with that, but you don't say that to crowds of people, like, especially because your biggest donor is billionaires, right?
If you don't already have it in the bag. If you don't already have it in the bag.
And they're not going
to. You're going to make the whole VC crowd. I mean, and like Cuban came out on CNBC the other day, and he's like, "Man, you're just going to kill the stock market, the VC, the Silicon Valley money, Peter Thiel, all those folks. Look who they are aligning with."
Yeah, but Peter, but that's But that's kind of the point, right? Because you got two factions, and one faction is Elon Musk, Peter Thiel, that whole club which is backing Trump. And on the other side, you got the Kamala Harris and, whoever, the rest of the world is on that side.
You mean you got the WF team?
You have the corporate establishment. The corporate establishment is running the show for the Biden administration, and they're the ones that are backing Kamala Harris, and they're the ones that fix elections. So globally. So it is what it is.
There's a margin of cheating that Donald Trump is going to have to surpass. I don't know what that margin is, but he's going to actually have to surpass that to win the election. I mean, because if you look at the actions of this administration, and God only knows how far you have to go back in recent history and modern history, but there's a lot to lose for the people who are entrenched in power right now.
Yep.
So the election's all going to come down to, and that's what makes the RFK thing so brilliant. Because for someone like me, I am someone who is inclined to support RFK. His platform aligned with a lot of my own personal views, right? So when you combine this thing and say, okay, we're making a unity party, which now for U.S. politics really is most people can kind of vibe with that political alignment. It's brilliant, but it has to be overwhelming because the regime that is in entrenched power in the U.S. has a lot to lose by losing, and it's not just power; it's freedom. It's past that. So, yeah, we have to supersede the margin of cheating.
Definitely. Yeah, they would probably go to jail for the rest of their lives, right? So they also they not only
it's insane too. It's insane too. We're gonna start taxing people on their houses, taxing people on their collection, taxing people on their baseball collection, on your coin collection. That's your rare coins now. Realize, come on, this is total bullshit.
Well,
we all know.
So the actual plan, and I'm not in favor of it in any way, but the actual quote unquote plan, that the talking points that come out of this are that this isn't on your house. This is only for people making over a certain amount of income and having a certain level of net wealth, which is significantly high. It's a stupid policy anyway, and it's a slippery slope kind of deal, because if it starts there and then it goes down and slips to everybody, it can be done. But I don't think that's not something that the society's ever actually going to allow is taxes on unrealized gains. I don't think that we're actually going to accept that. It's a diversionary tactic. So that
even if it's just a tax on an uber wealth, insane, right? We all know this because everyone in this room is, if you are Bitcoin, all of a sudden you start getting good at real basic math. If we took all of those people's money, and we took it and we put it into the Fed's coffer, it's going to last like 2 months. That's it.
About 3 days.
This policy would absolutely crash markets. It forces people, you can't hold. So it forces large holders of assets to put their assets on the market to cover the tax bill. It would absolutely collapse the markets. It's not fine. It's not economically viable in any way.
All the markets would just get smashed because nobody would want to trade it. It's
right.
The stupid.
It's
and for ridiculous. For those of us who live in the U.S., none of us would have to pay any federal income tax per how it was set up in 1913 if it actually worked like they said it was going to work. None of us would be high enough earners. So it is a slippery slope, and it is nonsense.
I think all taxation should be consensually based. We shouldn't have compulsory taxation at the barrel.
So I want to say hello to our two friends from the UK and Canada. Hey, Sid and Jim.
Hey, how are you?
We're really international. How are you guys doing there?
Good to see you all. just woke up, man. I just realized.
Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning,
Morning.
man. Do you have your coffee?
Having it. I'll be listening and taking a smoke break because in the morning I need that, and then I'll be coming back. But please continue your discussion.
No problem. Yeah, I actually invited Angie, but then I remembered that she's from Australia, so that's impossible. Like she said, like I'm asleep. So hey, Douglas, what is your take on all of this? You've been listening very quietly.
I don't know, like initially when you guys were talking about the Harris versus Trump thing, I remember last time Biden told people constantly on TV shows and stuff he bought and paid for the election, and he still won. So it's like there's that weird chance that if she thinks that she has actually paid for the election. Well, I've seen stuff from Trump where it looks like I honestly think he might have actually just went ahead and went that route and paid for the election, the way he has been confidently been acting and stuff. It's a little bit weird, but to be honest, I mean, either party goes in, Bitcoin's going to go up for various different reasons. But I do think we're going to see a higher ups if we have like Trump in versus Harris more, because like people are going to be needing to use that crypto more often if Harris gets in. But at the same time, if Harris gets in, that means that more people are going to take the time out to actually learn how to use the Bitcoin. You don't know how many people out there have tons of Bitcoin and could not tell you how to actually use it.
Yeah. That last point is also very important. And Jim, did you catch anything of the discussion so far?
I think I've come in a little bit late, but I mean, I've got a vague gist of it, but it's not something that I mean, I used to be a trader, but I don't pay a great deal of attention to it anymore. I don't watch the news like I used to watch the news even anymore. I'm so involved in my sort of blinkered world.
Understand.
Kind of liberating in a way, but no, it's very interesting hearing the conversation there.
You're just hodling.
Yeah, I mean, for the longest time, really, I don't know. Don't really know the other way.
That's the best policy, right? Just hodl.
Best policy is to forget you own it.
Yeah. Definitely. I also want to say, like, there's something really big coming up with Good Kitty. I think we can sort of reveal that. So that will be happening soon. Maybe already next week, but perhaps the week after. So that will be really cool. That will be, and also something really big with Jack. So, maybe you can tell us a little bit about that, Jack, sort of the plan that you have for the coming period.
Yeah, we're actually going to be able to have a sponsor for our podcast. So that's going to be really cool. We're going to talk a little bit about it tomorrow, and it's exciting because the sponsor is actually going to be Velar, which is a Bitcoin. It's a multi-Bitcoin L2 exchange, right? So you've got it on Stacks, you've got it on Bob, you've got a lot of L2s coming out around Bitcoin trying to make functionality. And, so for them to sponsor the show so that we can have this kind of content and create more of it is visionary and very cool. So very excited about that.
Congrats.
Yeah, and tomorrow we have a really nice lineup because we have Proof of Work. We got the show from Feza. We got, of course, Ahead of the Curve with Jack. And we got, what else do we have? Oh, yeah, 3D, of course, with his show. So we got 4 shows lined up for you tomorrow. And Purple Suede couldn't make it, and Style Pigeon also. But Purple Suede is, of course, with Ordonal's bot, so he's doing a lot of work there. And Feza is, of course, award-winning artist, so he's doing amazing work also. But we got a really nice lineup of different kind of people doing different kind of things. I also want to say something about somebody else who's also connected to Bitcoin Live. That's Graham the Penrose. Oh, sorry, I muted you, Peace Love. Sorry about that. Graham the Penrose, he's from Ireland, and he's doing sort of a lot of different things. He's like a cybersecurity expert, ranked number 16 in the world. And he's also a specialist on AI and all that kind of, and ethics. And But there's some bad news coming out of Ireland. He's been fighting for freedom there, and there's a lot of push for changing laws and repression of free speech, and all under the guise of helping people, of course. And they're gonna arrest people soon for being outspoken if you're against the EU, or if you're against foreign policy, or if you are just if you're very critical of the government. They'll start arresting you in Ireland pretty soon for that kind of stuff.
Yeah, they are doing this actually.
Yeah, I saw something in Scotland already too. If you misgender somebody, you can go to jail for like a crazy amount of time now or something.
Yeah. And the problem is he's super outspoken. Like, you can say a lot of things about Graham, but not that he's very subtle. So he says it like it is, and so I do kind of fear for his freedom. Right? He's now, I think, outside of Ireland, so I'm not sure.
It's sad. I remember when Ireland was a free society.
Yeah, me too.
Conor McGregor's running for
Conor McGregor.
Which I think if you thought someone like Donald Trump being able to win presidency of the United States, that Conor McGregor's out on steroids. So I think that's going to be interesting. But it's awful, right? Like it's almost like people forgot lessons of history.
Yeah.
And freedom is not the natural state of mankind. It's just not. No. And government is not there to make everyone's life better, right? At best, in the best case scenario, government is a necessary evil. And that's another thing that I hope I live long enough to see, because I truly believe that the blockchain technology that we have now and that is being developed can create even better styles of governance, right? And more. Again, it's an old Joe Rogan joke. When they wrote the U.S. Constitution, they did it with a feather. And if one of the founding fathers just popped up today, he'd be like, "Oh my God, you're still using that? That's a joke." I think the Constitution's awesome, but my point is that there's better ways to implement government. There's better ways to further empower people even more, and blockchain's behind that. So if anything, what we're seeing going on in the world right now, specifically in Europe and in the US, we really should be paying very close attention to these things, because the trend is not going in anybody's favor right now. The only reason, Naval himself said this yesterday, and that's someone who has a lot of respect from everybody, regardless of what they believe, but it's true. The only reason the U.S. is not in the same problem, in the same place that we're seeing in Ireland and Scotland and so forth, is because of the Second Amendment. We will shoot you. You're only going to be able to take this so far, right? And now it's to the point where we're almost kind of, the way he phrases it, Naval phrases it, is we're kind of like the only thing holding up freedom for everybody in the West. And I tend to believe that his assessment's correct. I don't think that's hyperbolic at all.
Yeah, this is sort of me with my tinfoil hat on, but I imagine that you guys probably thought about it too. But, sort of those mass shootings that, America is famous for, don't you think that those are also a lot of sort of red flags that are sort of...
Dude. Look, up until I think it was 1986, you could buy a fully automatic machine gun in the United States from a magazine. Like, you literally could go in the back of a magazines and have them sold and have it where you could get. It's not weapons, nothing that we have on the market now is so fundamentally different that guns just get up and go shoot people. We have a lot of problems in the U.S. We have mental health problems.
Right.
But
mental health, it's healthcare problems is because our healthcare system is designed to treat symptoms and not cure disease. Our food supply actually induces lack of both physical and mental health. We have this massive epidemic of drug abuse that is not really addressed. It's actually getting made worse and worse by the current situation, and it's all profit centers. But also to go back to what you had said about the formulation of our government now, and I love the Constitution. I think it was a brilliant document, and it enshrines the balance of individual rights with the necessity of some kind of organizational structure. But it was designed when information moved at the speed of horse. It was designed to respond to information that moved at the speed of horse. So we're just at a different point, and I'm very optimistic about the potential for blockchain to give us the capacity to build systems that are more predicated on consent-based engagement and social order that is non-violent. I think we can do that.
Yeah,
now.
decentralize everything.
But we're not going to do it by opposing the existing structure. We have to build a new structure.
But isn't the Constitution also dangerous?
Yeah, no, it's not.
No, it's not.
It's definitely not.
New York Times.
Hey, yo.
But hey, it's freedom of speech, so they're allowed to, right? So even though I'm opposed to that stupid ass headline, this is America, and they can still say what they want, right? Even though I think it's stupid as hell.
Well, I want to go against.
I'm happy to have that conversation.
Hey, I want to go against.
I'm happy to have a conversation against somebody that has crazy views. That's an easy conversation to have, right?
Sure.
Yeah. So Sid.
Yep.
Oh, I think Douglas. Did you want to say something?
Yeah, so I want to go against the grain because I don't think the Constitution is anything bad. I think it's overblown with stuff that doesn't freaking matter. I think that the base Constitution, the 13, like the Bill of Rights and the base Constitution actually covers generically everything you need to cover. Because most of what you guys are really wanting, you just need to have permissions allowed. That's it. If you guys just basically say, you citizens have permissions, boom, we can now do what we need to. You guys all sound like you guys are saying more government, not less government, less government. Like when you really think about it, base is base of Bitcoin is the magic of Bitcoin. The base of our Constitution is what is upholding our freedom. And just getting rid of that base is like getting rid of the base of Bitcoin. You're getting rid of the structure you don't understand exists because you were so used to it. I'm a person who's actually like, I'm not even allowed to have a bank account in America. I had to go sue my government to be able to get a bank account here because it's not a right, it's a privilege. And people don't even understand that. Once you've had some of these rights removed that you think are privileged by the Constitution, you realize once you guys start restructuring that Constitution, you realize, oh no, those are privileges that I've been having all this time, not rights. And then you realize that the few rights you actually had, you no longer have because you wanted to put it in a different manner. And really, if you just base it downwards, you go down and you just go generic as hell, like what they originally were doing, was just trying to be as generic as possible. Because it's not like you're still using the same pen. You're still using the same words to protect yourself. You're still using the same base generic thing that means everything. Like bear arms doesn't mean specifically anything. So that way it can evolve over time without changing. And that's I think what a lot of you guys kind of forget. I know this is kind of odd because I'm European inside of America looking backwards, but like when I go to Sweden, I feel like I have less rights, but I have more freedoms. And then when I'm here in America, I feel like I have less freedoms, but I have more potential privileges that like some of us just don't have access to.
No, I agree with you. The Bill of Rights, in terms of how I feel about it, is sacrosanct, right? That's not the issue. What I was speaking of is more of, instead of sending a bunch of assholes to Washington, D.C. to go get bribes by lobbyists all day, you could actually set up something on a blockchain to where voting can be handled differently.
And so what I'm saying is it doesn't even have to be a blockchain. It just has to be a signature. You just have to set up a signature setup to where when you sign something digitally, it is guaranteed to be for you or for me or for an entity. And that's the thing I'm saying. Like you guys are thinking too detailed and you need to go more broad when it comes to government. And if you want, there is
but how do you audit it?
Out.
How do you audit it? How do you audit it if it's not on blockchain?
Well, you don't need just one of anything. Like, we're in a set time where we can aggregate and look through thousands of different types of blockchain data simultaneously. We don't need to rely on any one blockchain. Everyone can do their own thing. And as long as we have everything public access, boom, now we have access. Now you got to figure out how to just do privacy inside publicity. And that's something that, like, original Satoshi kept trying to say. He was like, there is a way to do anonymous Bitcoin. I still do anonymous Bitcoin. There are people to this day that still do anonymous Bitcoin. But that's why they are anonymous. Like, they're not telling people they're in Bitcoin. There are more people who are in Bitcoin than say it. And that's something that a lot of people don't understand. Everyone sees everything we see online. They're like, oh, blah, blah, blah. But it's like, bro, like, I go to shops all the time where I know I go to a local coffee shop. He wears a Bored Ape Yacht Club t-shirt every fucking day. He wears a specific one. And it was one that was sent to holders. And when I first tried to talk to him, he was like, oh, I know nothing. I know nothing. And I was like, dude, I know exactly which number that is. I can look it on my phone. I know what your address is. I know how much Ethereum you have. And he's playing it off the best as he can. But his shop gets nicer and nicer the more Ethereum he holds. So I know he's using it as leverage. But that's the reality of the thing. It's people who are actually using the stuff, not just holding it, you know, they're using it. Like that one guy, like Jen, you said you're just holding. You can be leveraging your Bitcoin for loans, for other things. Into manners. I'm not talking like that one Celsius, whatever, but I mean, like, nowadays banks are actually looking at people who have big holdings and going, okay, hi, how are you? People who just, like, in America, if you have a company that has a Bitcoin in its name, HODL in its name, there are companies going to be sending you everything. They want to be able to say they have access to your account inside them. Like, there are tons of banks, they don't want to hold Bitcoin. They want companies coming to them that hold the Bitcoin so they can say in relation with. And that's the first step to, like,
hold on though. I would like to just say one thing right there, Douglas. I was just in a space recently with Dennis Porter, and we're still facing a lot of folks being unbanked. Choke point 2.0 still continues, and a lot of folks in the industry are being debanked. So until we get some better regulation around that, I would there's still a lot of unfriendliness towards crypto from the banking industry.
You're not wrong. I was also talking in business standpoint. I'm not talking individuals. I am talking.
No, I mean, yeah, I'm talking business. I'm talking like Cable Law and Custodia Bank. I mean, they were blackballed, and Custodia was they did everything that they were supposed to do. So even from a banking side of it, Custodia was doing all those things. And again, it's the same thing that they did against the payday loan industry back in 2008 with the Obama administration under Choke Point 1.0. This is the same tactic that they're doing against all sorts of businesses.
It's an individual section.
So this is all about the change. If you guys didn't hear the news, it dropped, I guess, yesterday, and it was like 18 pages deep. But Japan's about to drop their tax rate on crypto from 55% to 20%. So something's going on, right? And what's going on? The yen is dying, and they're going to have to switch to blockchain. And guess what? They use XRP like a mofo. They're about to release the US dollar on XRP. What do you think the week after is going to be? Oh, the XRP yen. Trust me on this one. So shit's happening, right? The equities markets are about to go, and then what are they going to do? Oh my gosh, we're out of money again. They go, oh my gosh, we have this USDC. Oh my gosh. Here you go. Here's your stable coins. But yeah, that's what's about to happen. I'm sure everyone here agrees or understands that.
Speaking of XRP, their co-founder endorsed Kamala Harris yesterday. Did you guys hear that news?
Yeah.
No.
Yep.
Yeah,
that was like the very strange.
You didn't need another reason. I think that was actually Jack's specific tweet on it. If you didn't need another reason not to want to vote for Kamala Harris.
I wanted to buy some just so I could sell it after I read that.
Yeah, I know the feeling. Crazy.
There's a Garling house. Let's see. Shall I put it on?
Sure.
Let's see.
That we will continue to make sure we are partnered with U.S. regulators before we go live with the stablecoin. we'll first issue it, we expect, in the U.S., but we think there's opportunity for stablecoins globally. And certainly Japan, as you, I think, probably know, they approved some legislation a year ago that came into effect this year. And so there's a process underway now to do stablecoins here in Japan as well.
Yeah. That's a coincidence.
Shocker. You gotta realize, again, you're talking about people like Peace said a minute ago. You know, so everyone wants to be in charge of something, right? So as we're shifting to blockchain's inevitable, Bitcoin's inevitable. I think that people who don't see that they haven't paid attention. So you have, big organizations that are going to want to position themselves to be the ones who get all the benefits, who can maintain control and things like that. But that's what makes Bitcoin so important, because as long as Bitcoin exists, there's decentralization and there's always the shot, right? That's what makes it special. That's what makes it the best currency that's ever been created.
Agreed. Jim, you're very quiet.
Sorry, I'm just reading into this Japan stuff.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah, he's about to be a trader again, huh?
Well, you would make my brother proud, because my brother is still a big XRP fan, and well, he has.
Who was one of the gaming companies started to say they were going to use it, and I thought it was a BS story. I forget who it was, and I just bought a stack. It's like, I'm just going to buy a stack, and I knew Japan and SBI are still using it, so I was like, I'll just put this into cold storage, and I'll sit on it. But yeah, it's going to be a thing. It's going to go back up to $1, $5, $10, whatever. But again, this is, it's clear as day that, obviously XRP is securing a deal with the United States and with Japan to do their digital currencies. I mean, let's be clear. Everything's about to move to blockchain technology for a whole multitude of reasons. I've been explaining on my show one of the most underlooked reasons why the dollar has to go away from the paper version is because China, India, and a handful of other North Korea are amazing at counterfeiting our dollars, and we can't account for that shit, right? So when it's on the blockchain, they can audit this shit like instantly, and that's a big deal when it comes to inflation and protecting the dollar from extra money printing. When we're going to print the fuck ton of it out of it anyway, we can't have other people doing this thing.
That, and then you have to. What makes me suspicious is ultimately people, the people who I'm ideologically opposed to in government. Probably want a CBDC really, really bad, and so I'm very, very suspicious of centralized entities being very crypto horny and in bed with government, because the end game is CBDC. Like that's how you take everything we've talked about today and you wrap it up into complete and total tyranny. I'm unvaccinated. I'm a nurse. I was a nurse by trade. I managed to stay unvaccinated and still practice my craft, right? I don't. You're back. I don't think that we would have been able to escape not getting vaccinated had there been a CBDC in place. I think they would have made life impossible for people who didn't comply with that.
Oh yeah, so, they already do this shit, right? China's already done
it,
Yeah, China's already done this to certain groups of citizens where they haven't complied, and they've either shut off their ability to travel or they've shut off their ability to spend their money, right? So this isn't some Black Mirror shit. This is real deal shit. I made that video. It's on my one account in May, and said this is why Bitcoin is vital for your existence as a human being, because if they do enact a CBDC, maybe the first iterations aren't like the all-seeing Sauron eye, But that first is coming, right? And the other thing is they will have expiration dates, right? We've already seen this with Singapore. We already seen this with the Chinese yuan. So they will have expiration dates. Will prevent you from giving you the ability to save long term. So that's why you need fucking Bitcoin.
Okay, but right to your point right there, man. So if we have CBDCs that have an expiration date, well, good luck trying to capture my unrealized capitalized gains because I can't save anything, you fucking idiot.
That totally exactly. Again, this is how much they don't know about their silly things they say, like we're gonna stop Bitcoin. Like when I see countries steamrolling over ASIC miners, it's like it's like witnessing people taking boatfuls of gold and just throwing it into the ocean, or just scuttling the ship right into the sea. It's like, wow, you people are dumb.
Actually, today I quoted Sid in one of my tweets because he had a really nice term for CBDCs, and he called them worship points, right? Because at some point the state will merge into one entity, with big tech and the military-industrial complex, and I think that's sort of the end game that they're going for. And this video she's like a refugee from North Korea, and her warning for us is sort of, I found it very powerful. It's this one.
Oh yeah.
Tyranny always comes in the name of compassion and equality of outcomes. When I was at Columbia, they are brainwashing my classmates saying education should be free. Healthcare is a human right. How unfair is it that there are billionaires and there are homeless people? We are all equal. This same idea began the living hell of North Korea. When Kim Il-sung came to my grandmother's and my grandfather, he said this exact thing to us. How unfair is that? They are landowners, they are capitalists. And how unfair is that your children cannot be educated, you need to pay for it. If you give me the power, Kim Il-sung said, I'm going to make everything free. Governments was gonna provide everything for us. If we just gave up our private property, our freedom of speech, our freedom of movement.
Yeah, so
I have a lot of disagreement with this statement because North Korea and free healthcare, they are two separate things. Healthcare is working in so many countries and they are not like North Korea. So they
It's
are
not
two
free
separate.
anywhere though. Healthcare is not free.
No,
It
the second,
costs
they're
something
exactly.
to
But
provide
the
it.
point is, we are paying taxes anyway, so it's better to get something in return. If I was not paying any taxes, then I understand that point. But if I'm paying so many taxes here, I'm paying like 30% rate right now, around 30%. So what I'm getting in return, nothing other than healthcare. So I'll rather take healthcare than that. But yeah, everything else is fine. But they are two separate things. And again, if you bring that kind of a gap between higher class and lower class, that there are so many billionaires and then there are so many homeless, then what's going to happen? A revolution. It's not ideal for billionaires because at the end of the day, people will rise up and eat the rich. So
yeah,
they
yeah,
need
but
to give humans something, a middle class where people can stay in their comfort zone and they don't threaten their power. So I think they are digging their own grave by creating this gap.
But that's sort of the problem with the broken money system that Lynn Alden describes, right? So at some point, people start gaming the system because it's based on, human agreements and money. As soon as you can print more money, you can sort of start using the money to bend the law in your favor, and then you get sort of, as it grows wilder and wilder, you get crony capitalism.
And the more money you give to government, the more you incentivize lobbyists to buy favor in that government, to entice them to spend more money, to make them tax more, and it's not an efficient process that way.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask about the CBDCs, just because again, it's something I haven't been paying attention to recently at all. But when they first sort of came about, I guess 2 or 3 years ago is when I first was talking about them, and it felt to me a bit like the CBDC thing is something that you can't put the lid back on because it's becoming, or it seemed to me back then that it was going to become like a nuclear deterrent, and like if any like countries like US companies, for example, that have trade deals with China are forced to hold the CBDC, that America must have no choice other than to issue its own CBDC and ask the Chinese that they hold it as well, because otherwise there's an imbalance, there's a financial weakness. I don't know where that's at now. Just hearing the conversation, I'm wondering if because I know China's had it for a long time, are there lots of companies that are actually holding the CBDC rather than what would have been traditional fiat yuan?
Yeah. Actually, there's a lot of people, if they want to do business in China, they have to have a bank account in China. I wanted to get a phone line in China so I could get a hold of Zelle because I had stole the app. It's the Chinese only app. And I had to get a bank account in China in order to get a phone line in China in order to activate Zelle to use it. And it is insane how many Americans have money over there. And that's the thing, is the money can't leave. So there's a lot of people who never admit to it.
Is it a hard process to get a bank account in China for an American?
No. The hardest part is actually being able to use it for things. Only thing I can do with mine is I have a number that just says that I have one. The next time I go to China, or if I ever go to China, which I probably won't, I would have to show up to one of their centers and actually finish my process. I was only able to basically start it and put some money in it, and then use that as a basic citizen right. It's not exactly that, but it allows me to get the phone line so that way I could do different things. I can actually use services over there, but to be honest, I haven't used it in years. But I just did it for Zelle because I stole the app and I wanted to be able to use it. And in case anybody remembers, Zelle was the very first mobile AI app. And yeah, and if you have money over there, you don't even have to admit to it. You might have to on your federal form, but your state forms, city forms, you don't have to admit to it.
I don't even know what the rules are. Is there rules about? Does the U.S. have rules about opening?
No, China has all special rules about it. If you want to continue using your bank account, you have to be very private unless you're in a public, positive manner. You're allowed to be non-public, or you're allowed to be public about it, and then you can never be negative ever in public, or else they could be negative. Then they can take money from you. They can deny your account, just drop you, take all your money. There's all sorts of things they can do. It's very, very difficult to actually use it for anything, unless you're actually doing business there. You're actually paying people and stuff like that. They accept money. So you have to do that.
You can't be honest if it's an ugly truth and still use your bank account in China.
Well, China doesn't. There's two different kinds of honesty in China. There is China honesty, which is the honesty that no one will ever admit to. And then there is just honesty you can see. If you can see it, you have to be honest about it. If you can't, you don't. And that's like government. That's how their government is. You go get one of the Red Star books. A lot of this information is in there.
Yeah, you got great books on China. Definitely. Stealth War is another one. And you got a lot of refugees who came out of...
oh, yeah, that's a good one.
But I also want to point out that, there's this really cool interview from Michael Howell, but also a really cool interview with Raoul Pal and Dan Tapiro. I think it was on Blockworks. And in the interview from Howell, he points out, and he said it before, that the yen carry trade was also used to put pressure on China in order to sort of buckle to US wishes, in order to, it put pressure on the Chinese economy. So I don't know what the US got in return for sort of alleviating that pressure, because now the dollar is in sort of sinking like a brick. And it's sort of...
They got support for the establishment political class in the United States. That's what they got.
Yeah, but, it's unclear, in what way, sort of. Is it just like in general? Like I believe they already had that, right? So
they're moving a whole bunch of really wealthy Chinese people into California to start paying taxes. There's a whole documentary on it on YouTube. If you guys are curious about it, like they call it, it's some kind of trade route and they're trying to build a bridge over like Panama or something in order for this to be an entirely on-foot trade route. But there are like really wealthy people in China. What they're doing is they're paying to get dropped off ahead of everybody else, and they're just taking like bus to bus to bus to bus to bus to get there, and they're just secretly making their way into America. They have a whole bunch of land in California that's separated and sanctioned. It's owned by, I believe it's owned by China. I think the last time the report was done, they said it was owned by China. But it's just big, like complex of homes, like, you know, places for people to live. And they're supposed to go in there, they're going to be paying taxes, and they're supposed to be able to vote.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that might have been part of it.
Yeah. Also,
Yeah,
like,
a lot of real estate in California has been, and throughout the country, but I've heard California specifically is bought up by Chinese entities.
yeah, and 80% of real estate in Vancouver, where I live, is owned by China. 80%. It's already taken over by China here.
Yeah,
It's
so
like a large
China
portion
is
of Texas
exerting
by China.
So China is exerting a lot of influence on American politics, right? I mean, that's sort of an open secret, and that's also, you know, Trump was really pushing against China. So, and Jim Rickards pointed out like that within geopolitics, you always have like, you got the problem of three players, right? You got Russia, China, and America, and Europe is sort of, you know, irrelevant. And so you can always gang up on one of the three, right? You cannot sort of cooperate all three. You know, when you play a three-player game, it's always two ganging up on one. So Trump is sort of trying to connect to Russia. That's also what he's saying and sort of signaling. And that means that if that happens, then China is the odd one out. And right now it's the US and China that's ganging up on Russia, even though sort of China and Russia also play this game. So there's some sort of dynamic going on there. And basically, yeah, go on.
U.S. and Russia relations were actually pretty good throughout, you know, the late '90s until
Yeah.
Trump got in. You know, it wasn't. We had great relations until Trump got in, because then the corporate establishment was not in control of that relationship anymore. So
if you want to get some interesting feedback and perspective, there's an account on X, Mike Benz, like BENZ, like Mercedes Benz.
Mm-hmm.
Look up, you'll learn a lot about what's going on right now in terms of Russia and what we're doing, and a lot of it's coming down to control of and distribution of petroleum, which seems to be what everything's about in this, you know, on the whole planet, which is troubling, because what you really have, I mean, if you take everything you put in perspective, if we had cheap energy and hard money, and you add automation, then you've literally gotten into a situation where you've improved everybody's standard of living overnight on this planet. And, you know, when that's a whole different discussion, right? But the thing right now with Russia and the US seems to come down to, you know, controlling petroleum and transporting and distribution. And his stuff's not like off the wall conspiracy stuff. Like, this guy's got receipt after receipt after receipt.
Well, and Trump did come out and say just the other day, Jack, that he would actually lift sanctions on Russia because it's actually hurting the U.S. dollar.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Well, anyway,
the dollar is unfortunately, you know, not looking good, and you know, most of the people in this group are probably aware. The Saudis have opened up, you know, to multiple currencies for oil now, and not just USD. And the Chinese oil yuan futures have been going on since 2020. So I mean, we're on a very different trajectory, right? Like, they've cut rates many times and printed dollars many times, but when your debt payment is approaching $1 trillion every, like, I think it's like every 6 months or so, or
it's pretty apocalyptic, isn't it? It's pretty apocalyptic.
insane.
I remember like five years ago or more, when I was first trying to tout Bitcoin to people, and I was saying to one of my friends who was very, he was probably one of the people who understood finance more than anyone else I knew. And I didn't really understand at the time. I remember saying to him, I think this is going to put the dollar in danger. What's going on here? And he was like, that'll never happen. They'll never do that. That's why oil has to be traded. He had all these arguments for it. But he's like, here we are. It's like this was the world he saw as apocalyptic. And it's like, we're here now, man. We're here now. All these things that you were like will never, ever happen are not only happening, but they're like accelerating. And there's a means. There's even more means than there were back then to do it as well. I still want to see more of this stuff, like what we saw with the mining from volcanoes. I thought all that stuff sounded like such a good thing, that like just being able to move. When we're talking about energy, cheap energy, it's like, well, why doesn't my town send some money out to a volcano or wherever there's just free energy, mine it, send us back the Bitcoin, and then we just use that to just offset our energy, like just finding ways to that's a transportation. Yes, we can't take the energy from the volcano, but we can kind of teleport it like that. We can like teleport it and then use that to subsidize our high prices locally. And I'd just like to see more stuff like this kind of going on, like less arguments about tax and stuff, and more arguments about like what can we just do to subsidize ourselves,
Yeah.
We don't all have access to volcanoes, but they're also quite famously uninhabited kind of areas.
Well,
no one's
Bitcoin
going to really
becomes
argue
the
too
carbon
much.
credit, right? Bitcoin becomes the energy credit. Bitcoin becomes whatever you need it to be. And like I've said many times, it's this alpha predator asset that not only can eat gold and property and dollars and yen, it'll eat methane flare, it'll eat coal waste, it'll help a wind farm that generates tons of energy but can never sell it when it needs to, right? There's so many things that Bitcoin solves, and we're just scratching the surface, y'all.
Yeah, but the problem is, of course, it's deflationary, right? And deflation takes away power from the elite, and that's not what they want.
No,
inflation.
Right, exactly. It's anti-war money.
Yeah,
Bitcoin is anti-war money.
But
Brings
that's
pieces.
why
The
you
elite
gotta-
existed in a world that allowed the elite to exist, and this is kind of what what we hope is breaking down at this point, is the ability to be an elite.
Yeah, but that sort of explains why they're fighting so hard against it, right? Because they stand to lose everything.
I mean, are you saying they're fighting against it? Because what I see is they're buying it. Like that's all I see is that at some point, once this argument where we were like for years begging, going at some point, like like a company's going to buy Bitcoin, and then like maybe a bank is going to buy Bitcoin, and then a government's going to buy Bitcoin. But it's like actually that's just a natural path to the elite saying, oh, okay, the only way we can beat this is by owning it.
Yeah, but control access to it, right?
What's that? And controlling access to it. I've noticed over here, because I was a broker for a few years when I bought the first, ATM into the UK in 2013 to sort of learn about this stuff, and I was very aware of how they were clamping, but only clamping the on ramps. It got to a point where you had to produce a passport, proof of this, proof of that, proof of life. If you wanted to buy Bitcoin, but you could sell Bitcoin, and nobody asked any questions. And they were very clear about sort of allowing people to operate that way for a while. It was like the regulation just came straight in, going, nobody can buy, everybody can sell, and that was how it was for a little bit. Now it's kind of evened out, but it was just an interesting how it landed. That was the process. The process was first we just stopped them buying it. And then we let them sell it to us. And then eventually we kind of, probably let them buy back paper Bitcoin. I guess that's probably the long-term plan. But
I think so.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah,
I don't think they're rejecting it anymore. I think that might be a PR thing.
Yeah, I think they sort of need Bitcoin, right? They need something that's immutable and that's decentralized and trustless, because they don't trust each other as far as they can throw themselves, right? So, and they don't trust us because we're gonna grab them with pitchforks. So they need something like that's outside of their control, but that they can control the access to, and then they can run the new economy, their CBDCs on that.
They
And
also,
that, because you're also not going to use a Chinese CBDC if you're America, or China is not going to use an American CBDC if they're China, right? They're not that insane. Like they need something that's sort of that they can both trust, because they don't trust each other.
they're gonna. So the U.S. establishment, as far as I understand it, sees CBDCs and actually USDC even as a potential replacement for or supplement to the petrodollar, so that it's a way to continue the further dollar hegemony into the ecosystem, into the global exchange ecosystem. So it's part of the design, their adoption.
Your sound is a little bit soft, Steve.
Am I quiet? Is that a little bit better?
Yeah, that's better. Much better.
Sorry, I turned it down. I thought I was maybe giving some feedback before. I apologize.
Yeah, yes, somebody was. I didn't figure out who it was, but yeah.
I think it might have been me.
Okay.
Seemed to go away when I turned my mic down.
No, I agree. That's part of their new hegemony. Is that a word? I probably mispronounce it. But so they need it. They can't go without it. But they don't want us to have access to it, right? So at least that's my opinion.
And that's why they legitimize the Ethereum ETF, right? That's why they're going to legitimize the Solana ETF, because they got to make a market for the dollar, for the new dollar, which is USDC and USDT. And this is where it's all going, y'all, because again, they can audit this stuff instantly. And again, they have more control. They love that stuff. But guess what? There's a handful of cryptos that they cannot do this to, right? Bitcoin, Litecoin, Dogecoin. So remember that, right? That, yeah, you might have to use this shit to pay for your bills and, pay your mortgage or whatever, but save in Bitcoin, save in Litecoin.
We have moved into the financial metaverse now, and I think that's the thing, is that you've just got to just think about it a little bit. It used to be that there was only one way of doing it, and now there's many ways of doing it. There's the way that they'll make easy, there's the way they'll make convenient, and then there's the way that you can do it that's best for you. And they'll most likely be two different things, deliberately by design. But yeah, I think that but like I said before, I think the CBDC thing is kind of, it's inevitable because if, as long as countries are trading together, certainly if they're trading with China, I just think you have to give what you get. If China's going to force a company to hold a certain amount of their currency, you have to have your own. You have to make them hold the same thing. So you say you stop this money working, I stop that money working, and probably the government would be best to actually make it legislation to say you have to do that.
Yeah, but
if they ask you to hold a CBDC, they have to hold the same value of CBDC.
But then I think that the collateral will be Bitcoin, right? Sort of to as a hedge against if somebody doesn't keep their word.
Well, I think it's a nuclear deterrent. It's like you just literally have to have the same thing as they do, because otherwise, if only you're hedging, you still stand to lose. It's like I think you literally have to hold a knife to their throat while they're holding a knife to your throat is the only way it really works. Yeah, I don't know. I just think that's kind of, now that China have really gone with it, and that companies haven't refused to hold the CBDC, it's just opened a can of worms that can't be closed again.
I'm not the only gray beard up here, so I'm gonna be interested to hear what y'all have to say. One of the most frustrating things I've come to learn in this stage of my life is how long it takes for people to catch on to things that seem very obvious.
Oh my God, yes.
And to speak into, I can't remember who made the point earlier. I think it might have been you, Nick, about the elites being able to control Bitcoin, and regular people not. I mean, the trajectory we're on, it's not unreasonable to think that it might be 20 years plus before your average person in England or in the US or wherever even starts to understand the value proposition of Bitcoin. And priced in fiat, whatever it looks like at that point, how many people are going to be priced out? At that point, and nation states have to play games on a generational timeline, if they've, if they're going to survive. We sit here as normal people, and we try to just live day by day, week by week, year by year. So by the time this is actually like sets in and people understand, I think it's probably be unaffordable for most people. I think that's a very real danger.
Well, everybody buys Bitcoin at the price they deserve, I
And there's
guess.
no unaffordable. We can always add more zeros, to Bitcoin. They can always add more decimals.
Yeah.
True.
That's true.
Yeah. That's another big story this week, right? LightSpark is, doing amazing things with the Lightning Network, right? You could do like $10,000 transactions. Like, what? And then they're going to be able to connect it to a debit card. So we're going to be getting into Satoshis, right? There will be dollar parity Satoshi at some point in the next 5 or 10 years. And that's what they're gearing up for, right? The guy that's the head of LightSpark used to be the CEO of PayPal, right? Or something like that. So again, all signs point to the digital money is, becoming a real thing, right? It's obviously being talked about a lot this election. Behind the scenes, it's been worked on for many, many years. And we're about there, y'all. So just keep stacking sats, because they will be able to control these things to a level that we won't like. And at some point, will they try and, again, we had a whole episode. Is this a price attack on Bitcoin? Is this an attack on Bitcoin overall? I mean, it's BlackRock, so I would say yes.
Also September, so everything is always down in September.
Yeah, well, that's the other thing is, before I think you got here, is like, look, they're going to wreck the markets, but then afterwards they're going to, what are they going to do? They're going to turn on the money machine again, and this time it's a digital money machine, right?
Yeah, this is the biggest like bring the boat back event we've ever seen, right? Like going on right now, like how we know Wall Street has always worked, how we know the financial markets have always worked. It's like finally they now own enough to play the same games with Bitcoin, with the crypto
Right, and I
market.
think that's why I go back to my statement earlier. I don't know if I was able to get through because my connection was bad, but I think these RIAs that have come online here at Morgan Stanley in Q3 and in the remaining of the year here for 2024, it's going to be really interesting to see the amount that these RIAs like Morgan Stanley do bring into the ETFs and through other investments. And then we can even track OTC for that matter. So I think, like to your point, the price could be very well suppressed, manipulated here to allow these late comers into the party, these RIAs, to get cheap sats because you get it under 50.
The only way they know how to operate, isn't it? It's just by holding the boat back until they're happy, and then they let go, and then they all turn to wolves again and start fighting, and that's when we maybe see the real actual institutional FOMO. This could be the weirdest kind of cycle that we've seen, because of this. Because
somebody made this really nice video. I don't have it right now, but about Larry Fink, and then he starts off like saying Bitcoin is crap, and then you see the transition phase till now he's like a cheerleader. So it was a really nice video to see those.
I think we just had like presidential nominees arguing over it. I mean, think about how long. We went through it for years, like just trying to say, "Oh, look, you'll meet someone who'll own Bitcoin one day," and now it's like it's. I mean, this is it's kind of surpassed where I imagined, I guess, at this point.
I also got this video. I'm gonna play this from Dan Tapiro and from Raoul Paul.
Bet was the Solana bet of last cycle, the ETH bet of the previous cycle. So I'm starting to think through that because I don't trade, don't do anything. I just sit with my portfolio. So I'm thinking through that. Because I reckon there's a really good trade to come. And it's a lot of fun, but it comes very quickly and it usually gets overvalued and then goes down 95% afterwards.
So I'm going to make it easier for you, Jason. This is easy. Everybody.
Right, I'm going to search a little bit more. It's a different fragment that I got here. Wait. But they're sort of talking about how much they own. I thought it was this part. You guys continue talking and I'll search because it's a really fun part. I'm gonna mute myself for a little bit.
No, what you've seen with the presidential politics concerning Bitcoin definitely happened quicker than I thought it would. for sure. And that's really cool, because really that push came from the industry, right? And it makes a lot of sense. I don't know how it is overseas, but our government in this country has just been very hostile to any kind of crypto, and that's what has me ultimately very bullish in the event that Trump wins the election, because we don't need regulation, we need less regulation. We really need to be able to get people who have a lot to lose, who are too scared to iterate and create and make things. It's like the potential for this whole industry has just been sat upon by a very large woman for a very long time. And so hopefully we're going.
I think what you've just revealed to me about Japan, that probably takes this decision away. If it is now in the wheelhouse of governments. If Japan can wield that much influence by reducing tax and saying they're going to reduce tax by that much, it's political. There's no way around it. Like, every government now must pay attention, because it's crazy. But that kind of that's the level we're at now. The nominees have mentioned it, and now you've got like major countries talking about like major changes to their
If you look at anything that we take for granted that's been created by human hands and brain power, how much of this would exist in today's world with the amount of regulations that we have in our countries? Like that, and Elon Musk makes a very good point about that. It just becomes regulation on top of regulation on top of regulation. Nothing ever gets revisited. Nothing ever gets rolled back. And so this whole industry has been hamstrung in the U.S. And I suspect it's been hamstrung in Europe. And the minute that changes, that goes back to your point about this being a very strange cycle. I tend to believe more what you're saying, Jim. That reflects my own personal beliefs about this. Is that it's not going to be the same, because there's just so many new variables at play that we've never seen before. Even though the price action is kind of reminiscent of back around 2019 or so, when we got real bullish there for a minute, and everything now it's back. It's very similar to when Bitcoin went from, I can't remember how far we fell. It might have been, this was post COVID, I'm thinking. I believe we went from like 3,000-4,000 to about 14,000, and then it fell back off a cliff. It feels a lot like that cycle, but I don't even want to say it's the same, because you have presidents and nations and et cetera talking.
It's shaped a bit like that that cycle, but much lengthened out. It's like that, but on steroids. And yes, it was just prior to the actual real bull market. It's like it did that. It hit the sort of all-time highs, and then it kind of sideways and down for a little bit. But yeah, this time it's just it's like all of those things, but massively turned up. Like the volume is turned up to deafening levels at this point. It's crazy, like how big it's become, how much, but also how much out of our control it is.
Yeah, and look at the companies that are now going to El Salvador, right? Google just put in a new building in Salvador. What was it, just like 6-7 months ago? So they know that they're like, oh wait, you're not going to tax people that are doing tech and anything to do with Bitcoin. Well, where's all the money now starting to go? El Salvador. Oh, surprise! Not surprise.
So I couldn't find the fragment, but basically, Raoul Paul says that his portfolio is 100% crypto, and Dan Tapiro doesn't want to say it on camera because his wife might be watching. So and these guys are sharks, right? They sell narratives, and they but it does show how bullish they are. And Raoul Paul has been saying the same thing as basically as what we have been saying, like this whole sort of curve that we're on with technology, AI, he also makes the point that, you know, what's happening in Europe with the green energy transition, that it's basically Europe setting itself up for free energy and robotics and AI, and it has nothing to do with green energy. So I think that also has that's also a very interesting take right there.
Well, gentlemen, I do have to jump off. Thanks for having me. This was a great discussion, and it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, guys.
And you know, it's real good to see you again, Jim. It's been too long. And yeah, so I'm gonna leave out. Y'all have a good one.
Lovely to see you again, Jack.
Yeah,
Peace, Jack.
Yeah, I've got to go and get my kids to bed as well, guys. So I'm going to jump off as well. But lovely to see you all. And yeah, pleasure doing this every now and then.
No problem.
Great.
Okay.
Take care,
So, guys, do we want to continue or shall we call it a day?
I can probably go for a couple minutes, but my wife just got back from Restaurant Depot, so I really should help her.
No problem. We had a good chat. We had I think we covered like tons of different topics. So let's call it a day.
We definitely should do this again. We should definitely do this again. Enjoyed it with all of you guys, and happy Saturday. And yeah, this was a great conversation. Quite a group we have here at Bitcoin Live.
Absolutely. Hey, take care, everybody. I'm gonna play the outro.
Pleasure as always. See you tomorrow.